Faneuil Hall is named after Peter Faneuil, who was a slave owner, a slave trader. And at the time of his, during his lifetime, he was the richest man in the city of Boston. And he derived all that money, most of that money, most of his riches from the transatlantic slave trade. Mm-hmm. He gave the building we know as Faneuil Hall, which is in Government Center across from City Hall. He gave that building to the city of Boston, passed away, and the city of Boston subsequently named that building after him. We have been protesting around changing the name of Faneuil Hall because it is inappropriate for a city-owned building to be named after a slave trader. We would never have a Hitler Hall in the city of Boston. We'll never have a Mussolini Hall in the city of Boston. Peter Faneuil was a white terrorist, a white supremacist.
Right. And to your point there, Kevin, right in that same area, directly across the street, there's a Holocaust memorial.
That's right.
It is not dedicated to Hitler. So
that's right. So we were looking at the contradictions, and we wanted to address the larger issues of reparations by addressing that symbolic expression. And that has been a slow battle, and we're at an impasse with Mayor Wu at this point. The city council has approved the name change. A citywide poll has revealed that most Bostonians, a majority of Bostonians, support the name change. But we have a difficulty with Mayor Wu, and it doesn't compute in my mind why.
Well, I mean, if you look at, and I'm not going to get off subject, but I just to tie it in, as you look at White Stadium, you look at other things where this mayor is really deciding that there's no democracy here, that it's really an authoritative approach to governing here in the city of Boston, and that she's elected with one mind, hers, and she wants your opinion, she'll give it to you. So that is never a healthy way in a democracy. And the reason why I appreciate you explaining that, because a lot of people go to Faneuil Hall just thinking, oh, it's just a tourist place, and you go down there not understanding. Because when I find out the context of certain things, it changes whether or not I'm going to spend my money there, or we just look at street signs or whatnot and don't understand there are some context.
Well, I particularly applaud you, brother, for this. Because when you review the history of America, it all started here. Not only the cradle of liberty started here, but the movement of slavery started here, right here in this state. I'm gonna give you a little bit of history. In 1636. There was a ship built in Marblehead, Massachusetts. The name of the ship was Desire. The ship Desire was the first ship that left the northern continent of America going to the islands to trade Pequot Indians that was actually captured in war and other and other resources for African slaves.
Wow. In
1636, that ship returned back to Boston. So the very first movement of slaves, and that transatlantic movement was here in the city.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that.
Well, and I think this is why, at the federal level, Trump may want to, admonish any history that is not positive, that somehow these were Carnival Cruise Line ships that were bringing us over here, in Royal Caribbean. And there's no such thing. Everything has been hunky-dory.
Not at all. Not at all.
I know, Pastor Hobbs, you said you had a question.
Yeah, my question just was with regard to Faneuil Hall. I'm curious, what is the current, how many black businesses are in Faneuil Hall? I know historically there's been none.
Probably won't take you long to answer that question.
None. And that is part of the problem, the larger problem, that there's no economic opportunity for black people there. Notwithstanding the name, we want to change the name, but we've also always pushed Mayor Walsh initially to ensure that there is inclusion. We represent, black people represent 26% of the population, 0% of the vendors or store owners within Faneuil Hall. 20 million people come through that campus every year. It's the second largest tourist site in the country, aside from Disneyland.
Wow.
So I would ask the question, because I think they're going to really slice this baloney very thin.
Yes.
They're going to say Faneuil Hall is the meeting place versus the complex. So there's no black businesses in the complex?
In the complex. I meant campus.
The campus.
entire campus.
Yeah.
So Faneuil Hall is the
That's
actual
what I mean.
historic
I meant
building.
campus. I'm sorry.
Mhm. So the campus extends to not only Faneuil Hall, because inside Faneuil Hall there are vendors, a number of vendors where
Inside of the building itself.
Yeah, the historic
Okay.
building.
Okay.
On the first level. On
Okay.
the second level, there is the hall itself where civic events occur. But there is an extension of Faneuil Hall, two very large elongated columns of retail and commercial space where most of the businesses are. None of them are represented.
So I think it's important for people to visualize this
Yes.
now, because here you have
Yes.
a merchant, and when in those days merchants meant that they were moving slaves on the transatlantic slave,
That's
and they
right.
were also moving other resources, but slave was a primary product that they were moving here. That was a merchandise that they were moving, and so when people started to grow the city of Boston, they went to England at first to get money, but then as the elite Boston became richer, and that rich was funded through slavery. So you got people who were able to actually donate a building off the back of slavery, and we do not have a black organization in the building. Think about it. You know what I mean? And so those are the kind of ridiculous situations that I'm sorry, this is your show.
No,
bro.
No. This is all ties in. No, it ties
That-
into what
that-
you talking about. Why the
Yeah.
importance of the reparations?
This is why it's important.
This show is
you know?
always your kind of show. I just sit back. Go ahead, Dr. Bracknell. I'm sorry.
But that's what we're dealing with. See, oftentimes
Yeah.
we don't know what we don't know. And so when we don't know what we don't know, it's easy for people to pull the wool over our eyes. So brother, go on. This is
Yeah,
excellent.
and when, if we don't know, we can't act. In this
Exactly.
case, in the name of social and racial justice, and we're not prepared to and not emboldened enough to go after someone like Mayor Wu, who for me, Mayor Wu on this issue is practicing a form of passive racism. And it might be outright racism.
I keep saying we need a No Queen's Day.
And we need to call her to the carpet, as they say, around that. There's no reason why she can't make a symbolic gesture such as this to change the name of Faneuil Hall to Frederick Douglass Hall or Harriet Tubman Hall or any of our ancestors who represent freedom fighting. Some say Liberty Hall, some say Crispus Attucks Hall. We have a plethora of suggestions around what the name of that place should be changed to. But again, the name change really reflects how we move forward towards substantive reparations policy. So we did extract the apology from Mayor Wu for the city's participation or complicity in the transatlantic slave trade. That was a resolution, went through the city council. Mayor Wu signed that as an apology. That's symbolic also. Not enough. That symbol led to the creation of the reparations task force. Again, somewhat symbolic. They're taking in information. They're going to give us some recommendations around what reparations should look like in the city, what justice for black people in the city looks like in public. But we have to move forward. We have to push the task force, for example, led by some friends and colleagues of ours who are activists, to do the right thing. We called, for example, for a $15 billion initial allocation of reparations to black people in the city of Boston. We put it on the table before the task force has come to the to any position around, taking any position around what reparations looks like, because we wanted to express in very clear terms that this reparation is about stolen wages, erased culture, and out and out hostility towards black people, not only during the period of slavery in Boston. There was slavery in Boston, but centuries of historic discrimination in terms of institutionalized racism, which exists
To this day.
even to this day. We looked at the statistics of the Bay State Banner a couple of weeks ago. Black men, the morbidity rate among black men, 6 times higher than the rest of the population. That is a legacy of racism, just in terms of access to health care that's disproportionately skewed against black men in this city. The
More
medical
incarceration.
highly incarcerated, the murder rate connected to, the violence that's in our community, not disconnected from a legacy of racism and white supremacy. So all this stuff, even up until today, 2026, we're dealing with the issue and the legacy of racism and white supremacy in the city of Boston, and there must be payment for that. So the $15 billion, if I can just take 15 seconds, $15 billion initial payout, $5 billion in terms of money going into the pockets of Black Bostonians. $5 billion going towards a pool that will support economic development, business development, housing purchases for Black people in the city, and another $5 billion. This is initial though, around public safety and supporting our public education institutions, Black private schools, for example. After-school programs that are privately run by Black people in this country. So we put some stuff on the table, and we want to continue to push Mayor Wu and the city's administration to answer the call, answer the demand around reparations. But I want to talk about something else.
Yeah. So before you go there, I just wanted, because I think it needs to be included in there. You said because there's been recent reporting that a third of our kids, because we're talking about the education component, a third of our kids will not even meet the basic requirements. Our high school, our seniors this year of graduate. So that all ties into the harm and the racism. So because when you talk about businesses, if you aren't learning the basics, you're not even going to know how to operate and run the business. Even if they gave it to you, you're going to fail because you haven't been given the basic components to operate it, right? So I see where you're going here, and I guess where do things, clearly you've explained pretty much where things stand here, is that the mayor is not going to engage, and I think she feels because of the win that she won pretty much unopposed, that she's been like with the Orange Man, she's given a mandate to do whatever she wants, and people just have to live with her decisions, as she continues to pump things into private business like White Stadium. So bring us home to where, like I said, I know you wanted to discuss some other issues with the church.
Well, where we stand is we're at a point where we need to mobilize towards in anticipation of the release of the task force's recommendations with regard to reparations. That'll happen this spring, and the Black community needs to be prepared, I believe, to push back, because we are not. I would be surprised if there was a recommendation that $15 billion go into the Black community for reparations. I'd be surprised if that happened. So I think the Black community needs to brace itself in the name of justice, in the interest of justice, and brace itself against the white supremacist message that will come out of this task force recommendation. Now, all black people populate this task force, and we know that all our people are not. What's the phrase?
All the kinfolks, ain't your kinfolks.
Right. So unfortunately, we're in a position where we're going to have to oppose and push back, and the parlance of the church, we'll have to rebuke the message that comes from this task force.
But
I'm
see,
anticipating
Kevin,
that.
I always phrase it in this way. I said we always seem to be running, a sprint and not a marathon, and this is a marathon, right?
Yes,
You've been addressing it in that way, and the reason I bring that up is because when I felt like the opportunity presented itself during the Black Lives Matter, and if we didn't get it then, and now anything that looks like it is promoting uplifting us, there's challenges. It's labeled DEI, and businesses, no one wants to attach themselves to anything that looks like fairness for folks who've been underrepresented.
I think again, I applaud you for your assiduous work on this issue. This is beautiful, but I think there's two things that you need to be. And I'm just going on the history of America that you need to be aware of.
Yes.
One, you need to be aware and be cognizant of the possibility of an insurgent that looks like us, but behave not in our interests. Working somewhere in this organization to kind of, make sure other people know what's going on. And number two, the people that are moving, our community got to be ready for the white backlash that's going to come. Everything, everywhere, every time in America, whenever we make a step forward, there's a white backlash. We're experiencing that now with Obama being the president. So just be aware of those things and be ready for the pushback that we're going to get. This is our history. Well, it's also my history and your history that we were enslaved, we were beaten, we were working for people and not getting compensated for it. And and that money is still, the work is done, but the money has not been paid. This is what this is about.
That's right.
And we can pay it in many different ways, and we can talk about different ways that we can use to compensate for our ancestors' work. But it needs to happen in order for America to move forward. They got to recognize its ills from the past.
Justice delayed is justice denied, and I think every day we delay, we see it in kids, like I said, in the education that they're not getting, and not everyone has the resources, and that we've been fortunate to be able to get our kids educated outside of that system because we know it's toxic. In that way. Let's grab this call before we let Kevin get back into his comments there. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Yes, good morning. First and foremost, welcome back, Dr. Bradley. We sure miss you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Well, nice to be back.
Yeah.
I want to make this perfectly clear on the radio. I'm not making any excuses for the mayor, but you have to understand that she's a child of immigrants, and if you study the history of the immigrants coming to this country of all colors, you will know why she's an anti-Faneuil Hall.
You mean, when you say anti-Faneuil Hall, you mean anti-changing the name of Faneuil Hall, or anti?
What I mean by that is she doesn't want to walk the boat, so to speak. She knows, okay, I'll say like in terms in money. If Faneuil Hall does get changed, and it will, that would destroy at least part of this city's economy, because let's be clear, foreigners does come to Boston. I don't know how many, but on a yearly basis. So she doesn't want to stir the pot or disturb that type of money to say, well, we're going to change Faneuil Hall because historically it was a place where Peter Faneuil had slaves. You understand me now, or just screwing up?
No. I think you just articulated quite well that you seem to think this is more an economic because people are attached and they associate that name historically with people coming to visit that site. That if it's named something else, it won't have that same luster in people's mind.
Well, I think
yes.
I think he's right, and there's going to be a period of that type of response to it. But I think over time that's going to wear down, because I think what happens is that these people have painted the narrative of American history the way that they want to see it. But in actuality, the American history is not very beautiful.
Right.
And when you actually want to teach the right thing, you want to teach that this particular hall was renamed because of what the donor did to earn his money to contribute it to the city. Exactly. You see what I mean? That in itself is an education.
And then to that point, you're right. Over time, because for the longest time, right, the Boston Garden was the Boston Garden.
Yeah,
that's right.
When it was renamed TD Garden,
how many people know that was a Boston Garden?
Right, exactly.
I mean, very few.
People didn't stop coming because they were really attached to that historic name of Boston Garden. It's still, that's what happens. Names change, and they just for justified reasons they change. So I get what you're saying, Dick. It's just really, I think that when people voted in this mayor's mind, basically unanimous, I think she just feels that there is no check and balance on her any longer. And I tell people, once a mayor gets their second term under their belt, you can forget about changing anything about them unless they leave, because they're never going to be voted out, unfortunately, even when they're not doing what the people. So anything else you want to raise before we let you go, Dicker?
That's all I have to say.
Okay. I appreciate you, brother.
Well, I think one of the things that you mentioned a name that really jumped out in my mind as one of the, would be a perfect name for this particular hall, and that's Christopher Addicks. He didn't die too far from that location.
Exactly, right, yeah.
He didn't die too far from that location. Right up the street, he was
I'll
he
go
was
better
shot.
than that. He was murdered across the street. You're correct. Christopher Addicks' body laid in state at Faneuil Hall. So here's a former slave. His body lays in state at the
Actually,
place,
I did not know
at the
that.
place built,
Yeah,
constructed, paid for by a slave
by
owner.
a slave owner. Yep.
So it is. I favor, but our people. have the right to I believe have the right to sort of offer any kind of name. I just think that it should not be named after Faneuil Hall. Peter Faneuil, again, was a racist, a white supremacist. We need to be very clear about that, and we need to address that historically. Now, should all names and streets and named after slave owners be changed? Probably not.
No, we wouldn't. We'd have, the Waze and all the GPS would be out of whack. We wouldn't know where to get to.
I would argue that if we were talking about changing things, I would argue that the nation's national anthem should be changed because Francis Scott Key was a racist. Just another hit, just to give people information about what you need to go and just go Google it. Google what this guy did as it relates to slaves. He preached this, but actually he hated black folks.
Right. And that national anthem that we hear at every sport event, there's a section, Dr. Bradley, taken out, where he advocates slavery.
The second verse, the next verse of it.
Well, it's interesting when you guys said it because whenever I would be in uniform and I would like if I was at a game, the Red Sox game, and they want you to, I would just go out in the hallway.
You did a Kaepernick.
I would just walk out in the hallway because I understood that you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
I mean, the things that he did as the Attorney General of Washington D.C. All right, he was the he prosecuted abolitionists. I almost had one executed. Tried to execute a young black boy who actually took the nerves and defied his owner. This guy wrote poems about how black people are, is a plague to society, and it was crazy. And yet he's talking about freedom. So,
but again, my question, and I'll let you finish with your thoughts there. What you were alluding to, how do we get in this climate in this country of advocating for anything of equality for us? Seems very toxic, and you'll see the legal challenges and so forth. How do we get that? And then the other thing, honestly, too, Kevin, I have to be honest with you. Our folks still seem to not have that backbone like we did, to coming together in an interest in this fight that we're in. Because whether they want to be in it or not, we're in it.
Reverend Jackson Sr. passed not too long ago. A mentor, not a close friend, but a mentor, and we had many conversations about the work we were doing in Boston, and I was associated with Rainbow Push, a representative in the city on his behalf during his waning years. But so we weren't very active in terms of Rainbow Push. But he said, in terms of me going to him around, should we do this, should we do that? He said, Kevin, just keep pushing. Just keep pushing. And within the historical context, that's true. 246 years of slavery. We kept pushing. Generations died during slavery, pushing. Abolitionists during slavery, pushing. Keeping hope alive. 100 years of Jim Crow. During that period, 4,137 people lynched. I believe at one point every 4 days there was a black person. But we kept pushing, right? Lived in under the cloud of illiteracy, but during Reconstruction, first things we did was build schools and build churches in terms of literacy. We just kept pushing. So I like to say, I don't look at the short game, I look at the long game. I go back to Book of Leviticus, so those Israelis who said that they were prisoners of hope. Imagine that, prisoners of hope. So we can't look at the short game. We got to look at the long game, and we got to give all that we can. There's some statistics, I'm not sure if it's true, but only 15% of black people participated in the civil rights movement. So a minority of the black community had the courage, had the audacity to step out and say, I want to vote, and you're going to give me your vote, or I want my children in this public school. So there's always going to be a remnant. It's a small group of us, and I don't want to blow smoke, but that's why this program is so important, because it allows us to have the critical conversations around why it's important to be persistent and why it's important to tell the truth and shame the devil. So in this context, Mayor Wu is the devil, right? I'm going to tell the truth on her. And, she should be ashamed of herself in terms of the positions that she's taking around the issue of race. And there's a backstory to Mayor Well. I don't want to go too deeply. When she was in Chicago, a businesswoman, we found this out through some research. Her and her boyfriend or fiance at the time owned a coffee shop, a pastry shop. They named the dishes or the items that they sold after characters in Gone with the Wind. A slavery, pro-slavery novel.
Wow.
So it's a Scarlett O'Hara coffee.
Wow.
This is documented in Chicago. So there is a level of, if not outright racism, but racial insensitivity that she expresses. And tell the truth, shame the devil, right? And we need to be honest with it. It will cost me. It has cost me my reputation in some circles. People don't talk to me because they don't want.
Welcome to the club.
Right. They don't want to be associated with me because they have business with the city or they have business with the so-called important people. But we just got to be truth tellers.
Well, that's when you know you're on the righteous track, not the right track, the righteous track. When you lose people who are supposed to be your friends over really monetary and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's
but I want to talk briefly, if you don't mind, about this business that we have with white churches. Okay. Now, I'll give a little context. As Dr. Bradley alluded to, 1636, the issue of slavery starts emerging in our area, in our communities here in Boston. Before the nation was a nation, by the way. The churches, white churches, or the churches I should say, because there were no black churches then, were integral to supporting the transatlantic slave trade in Boston. And some of those churches still exist. There's Old South Church in Copley, there's Trinity Church, there's King's Chapel. All of them incorporated, supported slavery in very meaningful ways. And then beyond slaves in their congregation working for free, their labor being stolen, being forced to sit in the balcony, segregated King's Chapel downtown. They need to be called to the carpet also, as much as we push the city. But these white churches, institutionalized faith congregations, need to be confronted, and they need to pay. We pushed. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say because I think there's this myth that has always been that if black people made it to the North, they were free.
Well, that was actually during the 16th. That was during the Lincoln time of Lincoln. But listen, here it is. Inoculation in the city of Boston was introduced in the city of Boston by a slave. His name was Onesimus. Right. Onesimus was actually given as a gift to Cotton Mather, who was the pastor of one of the churches here in Boston. All right, and he was the one who said to his master, "Hey, listen, we had this issue. We had this issue on the boat. This is how we did it in Africa." So it was actually inoculation was introduced into the society by a black man. And so the issue here, he's absolutely correct. They were giving slaves to their pastors as congregations today would give cars to the pastor as a gift. Right. You see what I mean?
Because there was more value in that slave
exactly
than the car.
Exactly. So the white church he's absolutely on target. They have to come to this as well because they actually benefited from the work of slaves.
But Dr. Bradley, in some ways it's still doing it because like we talk about the 13th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, right? In that we're in some states, and that's why a lot of them now are privatized. It's just a legalized way of slavery, and that's an area where we are overpopulated, overrepresented, is in the prison system, not in corporate America, not at the board of directors, but in Walpole. And it's not just in the South that this is taking place. It's also taking place here. 617-282-0685 is the number. 617-282-0685. You're listening at the Roundtable with MAMLEO. Our guest this morning is Dr. Reverend Dr. Kevin Peterson.
Yeah, he has a lot of titles there.
I know, the Book of Reparation.
But I like the idea that he's including the churches in on this, because a lot of times they get a pass.
Yeah,
but many times they spoke in the pulpit, about the righteousness of slavery and where black people are in the path of man,
Right.
of humanity.
Well, this is why history is so important, Dr. Bradley, and the perspective that you bring quite often. That's what folks are saying they miss that, and as well as Dr. Peterson here is that history aspect, because people think, oh, you're just coming out of here, and they don't understand what the importance of this, because they don't understand the history of these things and the history of this country, and this hasn't been there. Let's grab this call before we get back to Kevin. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Yes, good morning. This is T. Michael Thomas from the People's Academy.
Yes.
Good morning to you. How you doing, brother?
Good morning.
I have a question for Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Publicly, once again, is there a reason why you and I can't have a private conversation?
There is no reason.
There's no reason.
My phone number, Mr. Thomas, is 617 3.
No, I have your number in my phone.
Okay.
And I've made several attempts. And I've left messages and texts.
Okay, so
I'm asking you man to man publicly.
Okay. Yeah.
Will you meet with me and have a conversation?
I have
Because the reason being, you and I don't have personal beef. The reason I want to meet with you, I have information that will strengthen your situation against this city.
Okay. Well, I think we're in agreement here, you guys, to get together. Kevin will reach out. I'm speaking for him. We'll reach out to you shortly after the broadcast to make that happen. And I'd be more than happy to join you, gentlemen, if that helps, in case you guys need law enforcement.
And I'll back you up, brother.
Right, there we go. Right.
You know that we
No. I'm just joking. A little levity in this conversation here.
And by the way, we can go down to Dudley, eat at that place where we ate before.
You're going to get in trouble. Sadiqi's going to call in.
I'm sorry. You're like, what?
Nubian Square.
Nubian Square.
Right.
I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry.
You going to have the FCC off there.
Yeah, no,
I don't mean any harm.
I'm happy to meet. I'm not aware, and I apologize, of the calls or the texts are probably best. And if you've sent through a text and I didn't see it, I apologize. I have great admiration for you. Written columns in the newspaper in your behalf, and I've supported you in every way. And so I appreciate the information that you have, and looking forward to catching up with you. If you can shoot me a text, we can probably do something.
Because
this week.
Michael, you were in that same group with Kevin and I, and those of us who just said we have to get it together. We've been kind of operating in silos in some ways, and this is kind of when we come together, and we need to conserve our energy for the real problem, which is not us with each other. It is with the other side.
By the way, can I backtrack just a little bit? We were talking about Faneuil Hall a little bit and the naming.
Can I say this so I can just jump off and continue to listen to the show?
Yes.
Since to your convenience, please contact me. Give me the time and the date to meet at People's Academy. It's very important.
Okay.
But it's a time-sensitive situation. Right. It's good to help on your behalf, is what I'm simply saying. It's important we meet.
Like I said, I still have connections. If you don't, I'll get a flyer. I'll just put this picture on a wanted poster, and I'll get them over there to you. I promise. All right.
We'll put it on our social media.
One last thing.
Yes.
One last thing.
Yeah.
Great show, and I will be listening.
All right, you got to get that copyright because folks have been trying to use it.
Exactly.
But thank you. They have been using it. Thank you. Thanks, T. Talk to you soon, brother. All right.
Yeah, I may not have his phone number.
Okay, I'll send it to you. Want to grab this other call before you start?
Sure.
Okay. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, gentlemen, and my apologies for not being there this morning. But again, as he says, great show, and I am listening.
Who's that?
It's Rhodes.
Yes, you guys are having a meeting at that lovely restaurant in Nubian Square. I would love to be part of that as well.
See, foodie calls in. Right? Yeah.
No, but again, like the gentleman was saying, like, historically, if we've looked at the progress this nation has made,
yes,
every time any progress has been made, there's always been a pushback.
That's right.
Freedom, then
That's
the
right.
Reconstruction era, Jim Crow,
That's right.
the Civil Rights Movement, and then after that, the pushback, and now again, like you said, Obama,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're getting the Trump pushback. So we got to be ready for whatever progress we make, that there is going to be a pushback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether it's intentional, organized, or whatever, it just.
Yeah,
We know
it
for a fact
happens.
it's going to happen.
Exactly. And we have to be, like I said, our ancestors, we were built for this struggle. What they endured, we should be ashamed of ourselves for running away from, the not being included or not being accepted. I'm not looking for acceptance. I'm not.
And that's crazy that 50% of the people did not even African Americans did not participate in the civil rights movement. That they actually stayed home. I can't believe that part of it.
Well, it's kind of equated with
again,
the voting, right?
That's what's going on now too.
Right.
That's what goes on now.
That's right.
That's
People
that same
see the fight and
population.
struggle, but they don't want to get involved.
Well, Rhodes, it ties into those are about the same numbers of voting
That's
for
right.
us today.
That's
you know.
right.
It's
Some municipal elections,
Yeah.
there's only 15% turnout within the black community.
exactly. So
And,
I know you were saying.
Well, I
something.
wanted to mention. I wanted to go back just for a second to the Faneuil Hall discussion. On April 18th, Saturday, April 18th, we are hosting a public hearing at the Grove Hall Library, 41 Geneva Avenue, where we're asking our community members and the larger community to come in and suggest a name for
Another time.
Faneuil Hall. 1 p.m.,
Okay.
April 18th, 2026, Grove Hall Public Library. We're asking the community to come out to solicit names in terms of the newly named Faneuil Hall. We're
Well, I
going to
was
take
thinking
that.
Dr.
We're going to take that testimony and give it to the so-called reparations task force, the city's so-called official task force, so that it's part of the public record that 100 or 200 people came out to express the reasons why they want the name change and to suggest that it's changed to Faneuil Crispus Attucks Hall or Frederick Douglass Hall or whatever preference they might have. Maybe Larry Ellison Hall.
Yeah. They'll burn the place down first. That's one way to get it burnt down.
So I want folks to come out, and we'll continue to reach out through social media and direct contact around the need for our community to mobilize, galvanize themselves around this issue of reparations.
So, Kev, because we're going to run up against the clock.
Yeah.
Where are we? I know you mentioned the churches, and you mentioned several churches. What has been the response from these institutions, if any at all?
Yeah, 2 years ago, short story, we approached 5 major churches connected to colonial slavery, colonial Boston, and the slavery practice that they engaged in. It's on their records. And we asked them to go through a process of acknowledgement, atonement, and then repair that leads towards reconciliation. About 20 of those churches came out, signed a document of atonement, saying that they're sorry. I have that document in a safe at home. The great disappointment has been that no one's followed up in terms of the reparations. They calculated amongst themselves that they had $54 million available for reparations for the black community to be vested directly. There has been a pullback, a retraction from that. They don't want to give the money up.
Why?
Well, I think in a call, I'll be very, very blunt. This is part of white supremacy. They believe that the money still is theirs. Stolen wealth, stolen legacy, stolen culture, abuse of black people. They prospered over the centuries through the connection to slavery, and they don't want to give it up. Some of them want to turn their reparations money into grant programs. So they set the criteria
Controlled by whom?
By them. By them.
There you go.
Episcopal Church, for example, $12 million they identified. They say they want to turn this into a grant program where Pastor Hobbs, for the wonderful work he does around voting and health initiatives, would have to go to them and apply for a $20,000 grant report to them what he did with the money. That's not reparations.
Right.
You know,
That's control.
That's control.
So,
and that's white supremacy
Here's a
control.
softball say, if they're serious, like, you know of a radio station
Yes.
that they could
Yes.
easy write a check for $1 million and we wouldn't see him for another 5 years, right? And to keep this conversation, but that's something that's honorable, right? I don't see where it would be controversial at all. Right?
No, and it would be true reparations. You know, let the money go. You did the harm.
Right.
Let the money go. So I am. This is a somewhat breaking news. Organizing, and I'm reaching out to the listeners to join me in going to some of these white churches on Sunday morning and demanding reparations from their congregation, disrupting services. Mm-hmm. We may do that as early as Easter Sunday.
Do you have a church?
Well, I don't want to say what church.
No, because
they'll have the police. They'll have the police there. But we want to impress, and I'll let you ask your question. We want to impress on these white churches that they're wrong and they're racist. And we want to embolden the black community to stand up to what we created. And I'll get this document to you, 10 Demandments. Okay. We've demanded 10 specific things, including payment of money that they've derived through their actions.
Let's sneak in this call right quick, Kev, because Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Hey, everybody. My name is John Gibbons. I live in the suburbs. I am a minister. I served a church in the suburbs for a long time, and now I am a community minister in Boston, where I have the wonderful title Community Minister for Good Trouble. Mm-hmm. And, it's a pretty hard title to live up to. But I appreciate this conversation, and I appreciate the effort to hold white churches' feet to the fire. The thing that has been missing from a lot of this has been reaching out to the black community and saying, what will make a difference? What is truly reparative? And that has not happened. As Reverend Peterson is saying, people come up with their own ideas, and they decide that a fund needs to be made, or they decide that a statue should be built, or a plaque should be put on the wall. But they don't go to the black community and say what will really do repair. And I want to just point out one piece of history that I think is important, and that is in 1865, at the end of the Civil War, General Sherman and Cabinet Member Stanton went to 20 black clergy in Savannah, Georgia, and said, what would make a difference to your people? And it was those 20 black clergy in Savannah who said, what we need is land and we need sustenance. And that's what came up with what came to be called Field Order Number 15, 40 acres and a mule. And that never happened. No. Never happened. But, it's remarkable that they went to those clergy and they said, what would make a difference? And that's what's missing right now. Because you've got a bunch of white churches who are starting to wake up to the enslaved people who were a part of their congregation or owned by even their ministers. And yet they're not going and asking the black community what would make a difference. And I think that's what's important about Reverend Peterson saying that there's going to be the hearing in Grove Hall on the 18th. We need to hear from the community, and we need to pay attention, and the white churches need to pay attention. Well, that's John, my point.
No, we appreciate your feedback and that input there. Thank you, and hopefully you'll be continued a listener here, because also funding this station. There's a fundraiser here tomorrow, and folks want to donate to the station so we can continue to have this type of dialogue. So we can continue to have Kevin come in, because he's not going to get this time anywhere else in this amount of time, or even acknowledgement that this problem exists, or this history lesson that folks are getting here this morning. So thank you, John. Sir, we want to grab some of these other calls. Appreciate you calling, and please feel free to call back. Thank you. Thank you, John. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Peace. How y'all doing? It's Jamal calling.
Good morning, Jamal.
Peace. So, it's interesting, particularly with what the previous caller said, because as a black nationalist, this would be a case study right here, and exactly why clergy should not argue for reparations. So it happened back in the day, 40 acres and a mule. As you said, Colonel Sherman, and all this, General Sherman, right? Went and asked these folks of clergy. The problem then, and I believe the problem now, is that folks mistakenly oftentimes believe that clergy is representative of the entire black population. And what has been done with black movements that I'm familiar with around reparations, it has already been decided as to what reparations would be, and it's not the check. You know, I've said before that Dave Chappelle did a great disservice. Funny as, you know, all get out, and I love him and all that, but he did a great disservice to the reparations movement with that skit where it fulfilled many of white people's fantasies of just everybody just getting a check. There should not, as much as I love Boston Praise Radio, there should not be a check implemented in just like straight like that. Somebody's going to come with a check for this particular thing. What needs to be done is investment in infrastructure that was disrupted and stolen via the transatlantic slave trade, so that we have investment in infrastructure for all the things to be, you know, lost. Education, health and hospitals. Think about like all the black farmers, the black institutions, and so on and so forth, so that we could turn this thing out. But individual checks has never been a part of any reparations movement that I've been part of for the past, 30 plus, 40 plus
years. I think Kevin have a different. We've got about a minute left, but Kevin has agreed to hang around for a few more minutes on the top of the hour, because then we want to get into this shooting that happened in Boston before we go today as well, and he can also probably join us in that conversation as well. So we'll find out what his allotted time is. But so I think there's a lot to unpack in what he said. So I want to give you ample time. I don't want to get you cut off in the middle of midstream. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our required break. Kevin sat in this chair as well for the top of the hour here. And then we'll come back, and Kevin will have a little bit more time to have digested Jamal's question there and his comments there. I would also just say I would totally, respectfully disagree, because I think that pumping the money into this station is a huge vessel to continue to support our messaging out there, because we have nothing like this anywhere in the city of Boston. If we don't have some type of satellite radio, we can't hear these type of conversations locally, and this is where things are. So you've been listening to At the Roundtable with MAMLEO. I'm your host, my brother. Like folks said, I'm excited, as well as others, that Dr. Bradley is back in today, looking slimmer and trimmer. Looking good. And I think his family did find that mule, though. The 40 acres. We're gonna take our break, and we'll be right back.
So looking for the 40 acres, but I'm the